What's up, everybody? Long time no see. We are live again. This is Canes Insight Live, our second daily show today, but this one is focused on the baseball diamond. Wrapping up really what ended up being a great season for Miami Hurricanes baseball, coming within really a couple runs of Omaha. Some very, very exciting highs during the season, some lows as well, but ultimately major progress from an extremely disappointing 2024 season and a lot of hope as you head into 2026. This is powered, as always, by Sal Astorita and Cox, our baseball coverage. Those are some of the best friends Canes baseball has. We'll talk about them in a second. But I am joined by the one and only Sebastian Fon, who's been spearheading our baseball coverage on CanesInsight.com all season. Sebastian, how are we feeling now that we've had some time we did the instant react where we were both a little deflated, but now we've had a chance to breathe. I know you've talked to some guys. How are you feeling about this season?
Yeah, we're feeling a bit better. Obviously, we've already started to make some moves in the transfer portal. We're gonna have Rob Evans on today to talk a little bit about the team, the season, how that went. But obviously, before we get started with that baseball coverage, we have to shout out the sponsors: Sal Astorita and Cox, a boutique law firm focusing on securities, regulatory matters, broker-dealer, and investment advisor regulation, white-collar criminal defense, complex commercial litigation, and securities arbitration and litigation. The firm aggressively represents clients throughout the nation. So if you ever need that type of help, you know exactly where to go. Sal Astorita and Cox.
What a pro there, Sebastian. Already an expert with the reads. Yes, Jim Sala, one of the biggest Canes baseball fans you'll ever meet. You'll probably seen him at the light. Also, Hawk Tua's lawyer. He got her off SEC investigation. So you know the guy is great and a great dude as well. So shout out to Jim. Vaughn saying, appreciate seeing the dad side of you earlier. That's what really counts at the end of the day. Salute to you, homie. Appreciate it, Vaughn. Yeah, my daughter barged in there at the end of the Canes Inside Live football, the recruiting stuff, to let me know I was late taking her to camp. So I think she just wanted to be on camera. You know, she likes all that stuff. So I think that was just an excuse to be in front of the Canes Inside Nation. Is my guess with young Samira, young Sammy. So anyways, Sebastian, you know, obviously last season, meaning the 2024 season, right? Still feels like we're in the middle of the battle here in 25. Let's just say 2024, obviously an incredibly disappointing year, 27-30, missed the tournament. First really worst season since 1957. I always like to say before Elvis went to the Army. So that's how old it was. You're talking about black and white cameras here for Miami Hurricanes baseball. So you can't get much worse that year. Of course, you had some factors like, for example, JD Arteaga not getting hired till August, which basically took you out of the portal sweepstakes for, I mean, most of the top guys. And it's June right now, and the portal's already hot and heavy. So imagine sitting out for the next couple months. So I think that set that team back. You know, some self-inflicted mistakes as well, as I'm sure everyone on that staff will tell you that they made mistakes. And then, of course, injuries to Jason Torres and Blake Sear. So that was a nightmare season. Aside from Gage Zeal just being incredible and Daniel Cuvée being the best young player in the country along with Drew Burris, that season was one to forget. So now you turn the page this year. What are some of your overall thoughts on the progress from last year, year one of the JD Arteaga, which you watched as a committed player, right? And then this year, which you saw both from the inside and the outside.
Yeah, so I think this year especially, even with the limited time in the transfer portal, they really brought and hit on a lot of evaluations that made this team had a lot more depth to it, right? It wasn't, while Cuvée was the star, and at times you do rely on your star, there was more around him to be able to push you over the line. And I think that last year it was simply just Zeal and Cuvée. If they didn't have it, you were done. And you knew that going into games. And this year, you had a lot more arms that you could work with. You saw that we performed a lot better in those midweek games compared to last year where you were losing to a Bethune-Cookman, right? That was a lot better this year. And I think that showed, especially coming down towards the end of the road here in the regionals and the super regionals. You had different arms that you could go to when needed.
Yeah, that's something I mentioned in the in the story I did for Canes Insight Baseball Board, which, by the way, if you're not signed into the Canes Baseball Board on CanesInsight.com, it's the #1 community for like-minded baseball fans. So if you only know us from the YouTube channel, sign up for the Ron Frazier Baseball Board. I mean, look at how much activity you got for Canes Baseball. It's about threads with 20,000 views, 30,000 views, 22,000 views, 424 responses, 730 responses for one game thread. So there's a lot of action there. But I did a post called just kind of over my overall thoughts. And one thing that I wanted to get at, which you kind of alluded to, was last year, and this is both midweek and in the pen. You're talking about Brandon Oliveira, Chris Diaz, Chris Cinta, Jordan Vargas, JT Caruso as sort of your young guys who they got over 60 innings. They really weren't ready. You had some veterans on the midweek too that maybe weren't performing at the level that you want at the University of Miami. So the combination of sort of underperforming veterans in the midweek and then young guys who weren't really ready to play, I think killed you in the pen. Your pen was basically just a freshman Nick Robert and sometimes Miles Cava performing, and everybody else, you didn't know what you're going to get. And then midweek, total crapshoot. Now, the addition of what I call the old guys, right? Guys who I believe already exhausted their eligibility, were on their last year and had experience as starters or just very, very experienced relievers in the case of Will Smith. So you had Will Smith, who's a 6-year player. He'd been at Coastal Carolina, been in big games, big time program, had that experience. You saw that in the postseason, how good he was. Reese Lumpkin, who I thought was phenomenal in that rubber match against Louisville, really was good in the postseason in general and good in the midweeks. I know one start he had against FIU in particular was really, really strong. A game that Miami loses last year 10 out of 10 times. So, that was great. And then the addition of guys like Carson Fisher, who with his experience as well to eat up innings. And by the way, speaking of the pitching infusion that the Miami Hurricanes had, bringing in one of the most talented dudes in the building, someone that was huge down the stretch, getting a lot of crucial outs in the postseason, somebody who I know is the life of the clubhouse, Rob Evans. Rob, how you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
I'm great, Rob. Love to see you, buddy. How you doing?
Doing well, man. It sucks to be home at this point, being that we made it that far, but it is what it is. I think we've all kind of accepted, we had a great run. It was really fun to be a part of. It was something that we thought it would go our way, and, just kind of how the tables turned on us. We lost by 1 run.
Yeah, Rob, first of all, congratulations on a great year. And, I know you were a guy I was excited to watch, just knowing how much talent you had and how much juice and energy you brought. And then we had to wait for a little while, right? Because you were dealing with injuries. So people on the outside don't know that you really weren't throwing too much, at least competitively, until right before the season. So what was it like for you to kind of get yourself up to speed during the season? And then right there when the season's really on the line and the games matter the most, you're being counted on, you're getting crucial outs for this team.
Oh, it was really hard, there was multiple moments I could recall myself talking to guys like B-Wall and Tate and some of my close guys on the team. I was telling them, like kind of give it up on yourself because, you're getting to a point where, last year I was healthy, I felt good, and I would go out there and I'd be able to do my thing at the highest of my abilities. And this year, it just kind of felt like until the last, 2 months, I just never was 100% for some odd reason, right? We don't know if it was because of the recovery was a little slow or if, we ramped up a little too quick. It just wasn't how we wanted it to go. But I knew what people don't know, me and JD had a very real talk at one point, and this is why I love JD. I came up to his office and I told him directly to his face, I said, I will be ready to go whenever my name is called, and I'm going to step up for the team. And he 100% agreed, and he was ready to give me the ball whenever he needed to give me the ball. And that was my role, right? Not to go in there to give 3 innings. It was to go in there and get 2 or 3 outs and then hand it off to B-Wall. So it was hard to kind of grasp that at first, right? Being a guy that came in, being a starter. But, I knew how special this team was, and that a lot of people were going to have to accept roles that they weren't used to. And I was very much so willing to do so to help the team win. And obviously it got us really far. Sucks that it ended, like I said, but to do what we did and with the odds against us all the time, it was really special.
Yeah. So on that point, before I kick it over to Sebastian, going forward, right? We know you have a lot of ability as a starter. I personally thought we might see you in the midweek before all the injuries and everything happen, or potentially on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with how good your stuff is and how experienced you are as a starter. So now you've seen B-Walt kind of go both, right? Nick Robert last year was in the pen, and then he started this year. So we've seen guys go both ways. Your mindset into the offseason, where do you think you project going forward?
I think personally, I'm going to the draft league this weekend. I'm gonna make probably 2 or 3 starts before the draft comes around, just to showcase the stuff is still there. Obviously, because coming out of the bullpen this year kind of shortens that stuff. The fastball's still there, slider's still there, but you also the pitchability has to definitely change when you come out the bullpen. So going to the draft league to showcase that is a big thing for me. But if I've told many people if I don't sign professionally, I will have no problem coming back to Miami and dealing. Me and JD are gonna have a talk. We're a very realistic talk, but I think it's whatever role is gonna work, right? Obviously, going into senior year, you want to be a starter. I think I definitely do have the stuff. I think I just need to get back to doing my routine and the stuff I was doing all the time. And I think once I do, and having a full year of health in the fall, I think definitely next year, barring any crazy changes, I could definitely see myself being a starter and whatever level it may be.
Yeah, and then going back to the point you made about JD and the whole culture in the team, can you just like walk me through the whole season and how that kind of went? You tweeted out how if anyone wants to come to Miami, they should, because there's no one in the country that cares as much as this staff and the culture of the team. Can you kind of just walk me through that the whole year?
It was definitely one of the craziest years of my life. I've came. Georgia State wasn't the prettiest place to be at. So that's when I kind of knew. If there was anybody who could speak on, being around coaches that genuinely cared, and you could tell, I felt it was myself. And this year was so crazy because we went through some of the highest of highs, some of the lowest of lows, and we were right at the middle of the pack majority of the time. So we beginning of the year, we knew what we were up against. We knew we had a kind of easy schedule to start, right, with some of those teams being where they were and coming down and having to play against us who have been in the weather the whole time. So we knew that was the easy part. But as soon as conference started, we knew it was going to be hard, right? We had a gauntlet to start. We had 3 series in a row that we were easily favored to lose. So we knew what we were up against, and we never shied away from it, right? I think we just had to grasp who we were. Beginning of the year, we were trying to play like a team we weren't. We were trying to hit the long ball. The pitchers, we were trying to dominate in ways we didn't have to. And it was just one of those things the coaches always told us, like, you got to be who you are if you want to win in this game. And we never really listened at first. You could tell with the way the stats were coming out, we were losing, and we were losing by good margins. It wasn't like we were losing 1-run ball games or 2-run ball. We were losing, right? We were getting beat, and we had a quick reality check, I think, in the locker room. And I think what changed it all was that weekend series when we went to Pitt. As soon as we went to Pitt, we won a weekend series. We kind of realized, all right, if there's any point where the season will change, it has to be now. And right after Pitt is obviously when we went on that extreme tear. And it was just one of those things in the locker room that we were such a high motivated team that all we needed was a little bit of hope, right? And when we got that little bit of hope, we were gonna fly. And that's exactly why this whole season, this whole postseason, we were preaching, don't let us in the tournament. Because as soon as we got in the tournament, we knew there was no chance we were going to go in there and give somebody an easy win, because it just wasn't going to happen. And I think we proved that going to Hattiesburg. That was easily the most hostile place I've been in to play college baseball. Louisville was loud, don't get us wrong, great fans, great environment, but it just didn't compare. So the fact that we went in there and did what we did, I think it just shows, the coaches really instilled resiliency in all of us. And that was the main thing they preached. Sebastian was there when we talked about it all the time. They always preached it to us, and we just kind of believed in them. And once everybody got on board with believing, it just took off from there.
Yeah, and then kind of just focusing on those guys in the locker room. You mentioned that Pitt series. Was there anyone in particular that really led that kind of just the moment that it clicked?
Definitely Griff. Griff doing what he does. He was our guy, man. When we started the year, it was Nicky Robb, and then Nicky Robb got hurt, and we had to go to somebody. And Griff never shied away from a big moment. We knew even this past weekend at Louisville, man, this kid had just thrown the day before, and he was hot. He was ready to go out that bullpen. So we just had that guy and Will Smith leading us. It was just like, okay, these two are gonna put the battery in, and the battery's got to go, right? So we just got to keep moving. And once they got us in the dugout, got loud, got rowdy, we realized, all right, like, we're a team full of, no joke, a team full of idiots, right? We like to play fun. We just like to do what we do on the baseball field, and whatever happens happens. So once we realized that identity, those two really led the charge in it, and we took off from there. Everybody believed in it, and there was no stopping it.
Yeah, Rob, we got a question here about the chat loves you. They're all saying, thank you for everything you did. Professor Rosenthal saying, how involves the current team in recruiting you Canes? I know you were out there on Twitter. I'll pull the tweet up now, but you said it right there. No team you'd rather play for. Show what it meant to battle through adversity, never change. How proud you were to be a Hurricane. And then you took it a step further and you said it straight up. You said recruit some portal guys. If you want to compete at the highest level, play in a great environment and play for people who genuinely care. No better place than Miami. What motivated you to put that out there?
I think my mom sends me stuff that she sees on the internet. I don't like to look at comments. I don't like to look at negativity. I'm a person of positivity. I'm always happy. I'm always going to be happy. You can't change it. But my mom sent me something and she was like, I think people think you're forced to say this. I was like, these coaches don't tell us to do anything. If there's one thing they don't tell us to do, is to do something. They tell us how to do something. They never tell us, go do this, right? And even when they come up to me and ask about certain guys in the portal, they never tell me to go out there and tell them a lie. I don't need to tell you a lie, right? I was in the portal last year. I don't want to tell you a lie, right? I don't want to lead anybody in the wrong direction. So when I went out there and posted that, it was a genuine tweet because I know next year, if we can get guys, barring if I come back and we get guys to come back and we get some extra guys to fall in, we go from a team that finishes a game away to a team that's possibly competing for the national championship. And that's all that's coming from. That's coming from the wanting me to win. We sat in that dugout after Louisville for 2 hours, crying our eyes out and just watching those guys celebrate. And it hurt. Even the fact that we weren't projected to win, it hurt that we got there and we fell short. We felt like we let Miami down. We felt like we let the school down. The whole team we felt like we let each other down. But we all knew we left everything on the field. And I felt like if you were a recruit and you watched that run and you were a portal guy and you wanted to come for a team that obviously cares, there's no better team than us, right? Obviously, unless Murray State, those guys are doing some terrific things. But, we're a team that everybody called off a month and a half ago. Even when we got in the tournament, we'll never forget the negativity that people tell us, right? We'll never forget it. We had people telling us, you're going to get 0-2 in the tournament. You're going to lose. And it's just one of those things that we use it as motivation. So as soon as we put that culture back into Miami baseball, I know that anybody who comes in, I want them to follow the same line. And I'm just going to be straightforward with any portal guy that comes through. We're going to tell them how it is. And if they fall in line, perfect, because we're going to be a team that's going to steamroll next year.
Yeah, sticking with the hypothetical that you do come back, if you're comfortable, is there an area that you're going to try and lead the locker room in, kind of an area to improve going into next year to be able to get that one win and get to Omaha?
I think this year I was definitely a locker room guy. I just wanted to make sure all the guys were up, having fun. Even when I was in rehab, right, in the fall, I would try to just keep the guys high in energy, having fun and being loose. But next year, being able to be my senior year, I would expect no other than to compete for a captain spot on the team. It's just simple as that. Being somebody who the guys can look up to and ask questions and be around and want to get help from. It's just one of those things that I feel like I need to, if I'm going to come back, that's the main goal, to lead the team. And I told everybody who has years of eligibility after that loss at Louisville, I said, if we get back, we're not losing that game. It's not going to happen. So, I'm just strictly looking forward to, if I do come back, just leading the charge and making sure that people know once you get that close, there's no going back. There's no going back. You can't lose. There's no, we can't lose. We're not going to lose. So that's the only area I'm really looking forward to.
Rob, you have people from all over the country on this team. You coming from New York City, you're probably a little more used to city life. How was the transition from, New York and then Georgia State and junior college now to Miami, Florida? How do you enjoy this environment?
I think this is an environment I was meant to be in all along, right? A place that cares, of people that are passionate about baseball, because I'm very passionate about what I do. And the fans here, obviously, they take what we do very seriously. So it was one of those things that as soon as I committed, I knew it could be really, really good for me. And it didn't disappoint one bit, right? This whole year has been the craziest year of my life, but in the greatest ways possible, right? Met some guys that, I think this whole team, I'll never forget anybody. This whole team would be invited to my wedding if it was tomorrow, no matter what. So just being down here, it was just a place that I feel like I was meant to be the whole time. And even though it took a little long to get here, I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, and you've mentioned Coach JD a lot on this stream. A lot of people on the outside, he came under a lot of scrutiny, and then people on the inside kind of knew who he really was and what he was really about and what he meant to this team, right? I want to give you the floor and kind of just be able to speak about him specifically.
I'm glad you're doing that because I've wanted to speak on this man for so long. this man has went through so much for his family. We all know his personal stuff, but this man he never came to the field one day without a smile on his face, without looking forward to talking to us, without looking forward to leading us and trying to help us. Even all of the hateful comments we read on him, which in my mind is kind of crazy, right? Like, this is a guy leading a group of young men in the battle every single day, and he does not have to. He does not have to show up every day, especially being what he's been through. He never shied away from it. He never had a day where we wondered if coach wanted to be there. None of the coaching staff did. We all knew they wanted to be there every single day. So when you talk about a guy like JD, I always hope that people talk about him with high regards, because there is never a moment that I look at that man and I'm just like, dang, like, he doesn't care about us. He always cared about us. When I was hurt, he always was checking up on me. How you feeling? Right? Like, even that pro day that I threw in the fall, I was not supposed to do that. But I had begged that man. I said, hey, I want to throw just one inning. And he was like, all right, if you do not feel 110%, you can't do it. And it was kind of like a father telling you, like, all right, if you feel up to it, you can do it. But if I think you're off slightly, you're not. So this man is one of the greatest coaches I've ever been around. And yes, it's the second year around, right? I think people put the expectations really high on him because of where we are, which is very reasonable. And I think he performed up to it, man. He took us from a team that was 1-7 to start this thing to a team that was a game away from going to Omaha. People don't really put it into perspective. I think they think it was an easy road, but I'm sorry, people. If you look at our statistics as a team, we were a terrible road team the whole season. And to go to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, in the middle of nowhere, take out an SEC team, take out a Columbia team that just beat the home team, and then lose the first game to the home team himself, and then come back the next day and beat them, and then head to Louisville and take it to game 3. People don't understand how terrific that is in college baseball and how hard that is. We were exhausted. I remember waking up after this last game. I was dead. My body was done. That's strictly because we all left 120% on the field, not only for ourselves, not only to win to go to Omaha. We wanted to do it for the fans, for our families, for the coaches, for everybody who was involved in Miami in some way. We wanted to do it for it. And that's all that man does. He puts himself to the side every single time he goes out there. And I think people take it for granted, because a lot of these coaches nowadays, you can't trust them. And if that's the coach that I had to be under for the rest of my playing career, I wouldn't have a problem.
Got a question from the chat, Rob, from Brandon, who wants to know, growing up in NYC, were you a Yankees or a Mets fan?
I would never be a Mets fan a day of my life. I hate the Mets. Unless
So,
I got drafted.
Yankees, right?
I got drafted by the Mets, sure, but I'm a diehard Yankee fan for the rest of my life.
You're not going to make a comment like that.
That you kind of looked up to.
So people don't know this, but Amber Sabathia is my agent. So CC Sabathia was my favorite player growing up. It was kind of fun. It was kind of crazy how it came to be that she became my advisor agent. So I love that family, and it's one of those things that helped me become the pitcher I am, right? Being able to talk to him and pick his brain a little bit, it definitely, I think, helped me. It gave me a boost over a lot of guys, because you don't get that experience to talk to all the time.
Yeah, you're not gonna make a comment like the Red Sox guy saying he wouldn't sign for he would retire if he only had a Yankees contract.
I think that's kind of crazy. I think it's kind of crazy, because you're just setting yourself up for failure at that point, right? Like, if you do come down to your last contract and it's only Yankees, are you really going to stick to that word? Probably not.
No shot you'd ever do that. But
I don't think anybody would.
No one. I've asked everyone on the team that I've interviewed so far. Who would you say is the most underrated player on the team? Obviously, you're in the clubhouse, you're on the field with them. In your eyes, who's the most underrated player?
Most underrated player, I got a couple guys on my mind, but if there's one to come to my mind, it'd be Jackson Cleveland. That kid, being in the role that he's in, we had so many talented righties, and everybody saw that. We had so many righties that went out there, and we were big on matchups, right? So whenever we sent out a guy like a righty, it was usually a guy that can go get outs, multiple outs, and keep us around for a couple innings. Jackson Cleveland was a guy that whenever his name was called, he never shied away from going out there. He never, for a guy that came in and we thought he would be our closer and his role changed very quickly, you never heard him complain. You never heard him have a problem with it. Kid went out there. That was one of my closest friends. I talked to him all the time. He went out there and he did his thing. And he's one of those guys I'm very proud to be able to call a teammate. So him and a guy like Jake Doran, right? Like the guy that was right behind me on that depth chart. And Jake Doran is always, I used to come out the game and he would be sitting around the dugout, I'd be like, Doran, stay ready. Because if those two lefties come back around, we know what the situation would be. And he was always ready. He never was like unprepared for a moment. So those two guys, especially being what they did that game 1, they kind of set us up to get to a point where we could have our big guys ready for game 2 and 3.
Yeah, I ask because I could see that those are the guys that mean a lot to not only the clubhouse, but the performance of the team, right? I think it's been a unanimous Jake Dorn mention every single time I ask that question, right? But people on the outside, they kind of don't see that. So I'm glad to be able to bring that to light with a guy that's, on the field with them.
Definitely. People don't realize that guy, after game one, you lose that game, it's hard, right? We were down big, so we can't go out there and throw me, Will, Carson Fisher, Brian Walters. We just can't go out there and throw and pray to eat up innings when that's not the point of that game. Once you lose that game one by a margin, our game plan shifted to keep the lead there. Maybe our team gets back into it. If we don't, we're ready for game two with every bit of fire we got. And that was the plan. We got to game two. Everybody was ready to go. We all threw. And then game three was all hands on deck. We had AJ Siskar ready. We had Griffin Hughes ready. We had everybody ready to go.
Rob, reliever versus starter, just in terms of your arsenal, just the way you approach. Obviously, you're going against lefties, so that's a difference. But like, how's your mindset different as a starter versus a reliever?
As a starter, I feel like I was one of those guys that I came out and I had to get in the groove. I was kind of like a Griffin. That's why I love to watch Griffin. I think if people who watched me throw last year would definitely see some similarities. I had to get in the groove to get going, and once I got in the groove, I felt like I was really unhittable. And Griffin, like he showed us versus Columbia, once he got in that groove, like there was no touching him. So I felt like that was the biggest change coming out of the reliever role. I talked to JD about that too. It was kind of weird at first. I didn't really believe in my stuff as a reliever. I felt like I was one of those guys that I was definitely made to be a starter, but obviously with our rotation, I was looking at first, it was kind of just like, all right, you got to fall into the role and accept it. And then my elbows was still flaring up, so we had to change things. But the biggest change we made, and people don't realize, last helped me a lot. We started throwing a sinker, and that's what made lefts on left so easy, right? Like every time there was a lefty, I think we had a stat the last month. There was only 2 left on left hits I gave up in the past 20 at bats or something like that. So it was just really easy to pitch with a sinker and a hard slider at that point because it was just the go to, right? Like every lefty, it's coming, but it depends on how good the pitcher's throwing it for you to hit it.
Yeah, I know how close of a relationship you had with Tate and some of the other freshman pitchers on the team. You speak a little about how they made that jump to starting and how kind of the clubhouse rallied around them.
Tate was a guy that we knew he was electric. He's easily one of the best raw freshman arms I've seen. And I'll give that kid a lot of credit because the positions we put him in, him and Siskar, we put them in, it was very hard. Like they had to save the season and they had to save the season fast. Tate was even faster because we were at Pitt. He was still on the depth chart for the first 2 games, but he had to be ready to start on Sunday. And we gave him the ball that Sunday, and he did his thing. Those guys stepped up in such tremendous ways for us that we can't even explain. They settled down the whole rotation. They settled down a lot of roles for everybody else because a lot of people were around them. It made pitching so much easier. When AJ Siskar would go out there on a Saturday and go 6 innings, all right, we got 4 innings to play with. We got an inning that we know B-Walt's touching. 7 and 8, we're about to eat them up because we had so many guys that we could go to, and it was just really easy at that point. So those 2 guys, man, I give them a lot of credit. And even Tate, he got rounded around at Southern Miss, but I tell him, man, it was one of those days. Like that team came out of nowhere. We knew they could hit, but they came out of nowhere that first inning and just they were relentless. So we had 2 outs with 2 runs scored, and it just kept scoring. So it's one of those games I told him you got to flush it quick. One of his games in his young career, he'll never forget it. Being that was his last outing this year, he'll never forget that outing because next time he touches the field in a Miami uniform, he's gonna use it to fuel him. And then Siskar, he's gonna use that Louisville outing to fuel him. I know he's probably sitting at home thinking about that error that changed it, but I would never hold a grudge against these kids. These kids went out there and with a group of guys that they knew were relying on them to do their thing, they never shied away from it. And they always, put the team first when whatever they were doing on that mound. They made sure they were doing it for the best of the team. And I'm extremely proud of those guys. And I can't wait to see those 2 develop as, they're going to head the rotation next year.
Rob, you personally, just like a moment this season, whether on the mound or in the clubhouse, whatever it was, that sticks out that you're going to remember, for a long time from this particular year?
I think the one that sticks out to me the most, honestly, I always say this, that NC State rain out. And this was a weird one because once the game got rained out, I knew the season was going to change drastically right there because I knew how tight the ACC was and I knew how we were going to sweep. This was crazy. We were so confident that at this roll, that point we won 10 games, we would show up to the clubhouse expecting a win, like 99% sure we were winning a game. The 1% was if God told us no directly. So we were very much so certain we were going to win. And once that game got rained out, I remember telling somebody, I said, this is going to change the whole season. And if you look back at the standings, it changed our whole season. We failed to get one more game because, you know, the wheels kind of fell off that last 2 weeks. We played a really tough two teams that arguably could have made the tournament. And that one game would have put us in a huge spot, even over a team like Louisville. So we thought about that. I thought about that as soon as it happened, and I was like, "This is going to change the season. It just has to. It just the way it was looking was going to, and it did." Luckily, we came out on the higher end of it, right? Like we battled through it, just like this team always does. But that one moment will always stand out to me, and I don't know why it always does, but it just randomly stood out to me at that moment.
So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it kind of was like riding a wave. You didn't feel the fatigue, right? But then when that kind of rain out hit, it kind of brought you guys back to reality. I think you mentioned it to me that the fatigue started to really kick in after that series.
And not even physical fatigue, right? Like mental fatigue. We were going so long and so hard against these teams. We played 3 top 25 opponents in a row. You have to realize that is really hard on the body and the mind when you're trying to grind out every game, every inning. And it's not like we just beat them. We swept somebody. We swept 2 of these teams. So we're going out there battling with them. And we get to that Virginia series, and we just kind of lulled. Like we weren't as high in energy as we always were, and we tried to fix it. But sometimes when you try to fix things too late, it's too late. And that was one of those things we realized. Virginia was an extremely talented team. I think they were easily a top 3 team in the ACC. But it was just one of those things we couldn't fix it. And then the Notre Dame series, it was weird. We don't know what happened. We just know that we just got our butts handed to us, and that was as simple as that.
Rob, one more from me. By the way, thank you you've been really generous with your time. So one more from me before I kick it to Sebastian, get you out of here. Look, obviously, if you get drafted, sign, and go that route, we kind of know what your summer is going to look like, right? As far as how that's going to look. But assuming that's not the path that you go on, what is your player development plan for the summer before you come back to college?
I think this past 2 months has showed me a lot. Showed me my arm is still in. Once it's healthy, I think my arm is one of the most electric arms that could be in a rotation. And while I come back to school, I'm going to do whatever I can to lead the rotation next year and help these guys and help us get back to where we need to be. And that's for a full year. So I'm going to be coming back down to school really early, working with Doc, working with Soto, making sure that I'm staying healthy, keeping the training regimen where it should be. Because, Lord knows next year that if we get a couple more pieces, this team could be really, really dangerous. So I'm fully expecting to be the leading charge to it. And that's that. I don't think I need to do anything else besides, tweak some pitching things, but that's just the simple things that come over the course of an off season anyway. But besides that, it's just coming back, making sure that my body's staying healthy, keeping the track on the elbow, even though it's really good at this point, and kind of helping the younger guys transition into that second year, because it is different. As crazy as it sounds, it's a very different experience because the coaches no longer ask things of you. They expect things of you. And I think we had such a young group of guys that they're going to have to realize that. And once they realize that, I feel like we'll have a team full of leaders and not just one, right?
Yeah, and for me, I don't really got anything else for you, Rob. Just want to say thanks for this incredible year that you and the guys took us on. You were a key part of that, right? A lot of people didn't see that at first, but they saw that now, and they want you to come back next year. So when you come, hopefully you come back next year and, you make it happen.
Definitely. I've said I'm damn proud to be a Hurricane. It's one of the greatest experiences of my life. So if I even have a slight possibility of using my last year, I'm not going to hesitate, right? I've always said, I told JD, I'm loyal to this program. There's not a single bone in my body that wants to leave. But, at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for the family and what's best for yourself at all times. So if that is the case, and I go to professional ball, I'll say my 1 year as a Hurricane was greater than a lot of guys could possibly ever say their 1 year out of school was. So if it is the case, sure. But if I do get to come back, I'm fully set on going to Omaha. There's no changing that.
Rob, I'll echo that, man. Thank you. It was a pleasure watching you, man. You were fun to watch in the group chats, man. People were going crazy for you in tournament. You got a lot of star quality, man. Everybody loved it. Like, man, Big Rob's up. Let's go. So you had that ability, man, to get people fired up. So appreciate everything that you did for this program, and wish you all the best this summer. And thanks for your time, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys.
Take care.
All righty.
Good dude, man.
Yeah. Told you, man. He's one of the good ones, man. He's such an incredible person to have in that clubhouse, and it was a really special part to what made this special team do what it did.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch, and yeah, I do hope. Obviously, look, if he gets drafted in a position to make money and do his thing, that's one thing. But if it works out a different way and he comes back, and I'm really excited to see, because I don't think, and we've talked about this offline, we talked about it before the season, right? When he first signed, I think there's more there that people had the chance to see really as a starter, right? Because he didn't get to start this year. But you saw the stuff at the end of the year, you saw the athleticism, you saw the energy, just the mentality. So he's someone that I think I'd really love to see have a full year of health, number one, first and foremost, and as a starter, because I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, we're obviously being a bit greedy in the sense that we want him back, but at the end of the day, it's what's best for him and his family. I wish him success in his career if he gets drafted. We'll all be sure to follow him and watch what he does, and I expect him to do great things, but if he does come back, that's something that we really want. And Kane's Cat Heat 305 keeps bringing up that we didn't ask Rob if he's recruiting New York for us. That's because he is. We know he is. He's recruiting them hard. He's out there bringing those guys in, and he's such a great dude, not only for this team on the field, but off the field.
Yeah, I gotta be careful. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Sometimes there's violations and stuff. You don't want to get anybody in trouble there. But Sebastian, before we send this home, just overall, I think in terms of areas of improvement, right? We saw definite improvement in the clubhouse and just the overall character of the team. Not to speak bad about the 2014, but this is something JD said from the beginning, and you saw the results, right? When you had those highs and lows, if you're not mentally there, those lows become extended lows as opposed to, just a drop before you go back up again. So I think we heard it all year. We heard it in the offseason. You said it. We talked about it offline, online, on this show forever. And I think that clearly you saw it on the field. So we could say that confidently. The depth of the pitching staff, guys like Fisher, guys like Will Smith, guys like Reese Lumpkin. I just think that's a big difference from last year. The experienced depth compared to last year, you were throwing just young guys out there when they really weren't ready to contribute in that way. What else would you say you saw this season as far as making a step up from last year and heading in the right direction?
Yeah, I think that you saw a lot of freshman arms and players in the field show that promise, right? That's something that we really didn't see too much, but we saw that this year. I mean, you have your freshman arms in AJ Siskar and Tate DeRiss. You saw them flash, right? You saw the defense of Mikey Torres. You saw Fabio Peralta hitting 400 at one point in the middle of the year. You saw that these guys all have the tools to be able to take that step. And I think that going into next season, if you're going to look at an area to improve, you're going to need those guys to even step up even more. I think that you will get that with another year of college baseball under their belt, another off season in the weight room, in with college coaches. You'll see Fabio Peralta get back more towards that hot streak that he had, because it wasn't only just a hot streak. It was an extended period of time that he was really doing well for this team. Mikey Torres, you know what you're getting in center field with him. And if you saw it towards the regionals and the super regionals, he really started to swing it a lot better. If you get those two to be able to pair with the guys that you're returning, it's a much scarier team next year with the arms. Guys like maybe even Rob Evans coming back, a bigger role. This could be a much scarier team next year. Yeah, no,
looking forward to watching, and we're not going to wait till next season to get this thing started. We're going to be talking every single week. Miami Hurricanes baseball portal is going to be very, very big for us. We're talking about all that. We did a lot, both today and yesterday's live show, talking Vance Shahan. Excited about what he brings to the table. He's someone we've talked about offline. We're excited to see what he can do. Draft, portal, freshmen, hopefully landing. We'll definitely get some of them, but hopefully most of this class, if not all the class, getting on campus. We'll talk about all that. Then in fall, I'll be there. So you have reports on fall. We got storm sessions too on the official Miami Hurricanes channel. That's my show. I'm interviewing Brian Walters here later today. So you'll get more baseball interviews from this year's team and then next year's team on Storm Sessions, the official channel. You can see that also on Spotify and Apple Pods. So we're going to give you more Canes baseball coverage than you could ever imagine. I think it's going to kick up a notch. The fact that, I'll be honest, it was hard to do as much as we wanted to do because there was a lot of negativity around. And, sometimes when that's happening, you kind of want to take a more measured approach. But, now there's juice around the program, and we want to really put the pedal to the metal with our baseball coverage and give you guys all that kind of access. So it's gonna be a fun summer. Sebastian's going to be leading the way. He'll be our ace in the hole, and we'll have a lot of fun. So Sebastian, man, thank you for all you've done. I know Canes fans enjoyed your coverage all season, and it's not stopping.
No, sir. It's never stopping. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe. And as always, go Canes.
Go Canes.